It's time. It's episode 71, the ATM podcast. Myself, Martin Devlin, Mark Watson, international broadcaster of much acclaim. We are talking Lewis, Clareburt and Erika Fairweather again. What possibility of medals at the Olympics? Super Rugby starts this Friday. Your Blues, Watto. It's got to be your year, doesn't it? The Warriors sell out in Christchurch pre-season. There is a record crowd expected for the T20s against Australia starting this week. Super Rugby's got a hell of a lot of ground to make up. Would you rather, speaking of those T20s, win that series or win at least one test versus Australia? Kane Williamson to talk about as well. And this utter farce that was the All-Star game yesterday, if we can squeeze that in.
Apologise to me!
But kicking it off with Clareburt, who moved to Auckland, of course, because he couldn't find a lane to swim in and then pulled down in Wellington. He wins a World Championship medal, a gold, to go along with Erika Fairweather, who's collected a couple at these World Champs. And I love what he said yesterday, mate, where he said, look, history remembers not who wasn't in the race, history remembers who was in the race. So we know that some of the best swimmers in the world weren't at these particular World Champs. And a couple of things. I find it a little weird that in Olympic year, which is the World Champs, you have a World Champs, but I suppose that all the swimmers want some competition and just to see where they're at. But can Clareburt and Fairweather repeat these performances at the Olympics or even just get on the podium?
Yeah, interesting one. Look, I agree with Lewis, and I think I said it last week when it came to Erika. Look, Erika Fairweather had the three big names missing, as we discussed last week: Summer McIntosh, Ariana Titmus, and the great Katie Ledecky. I think at the Olympic Games, her best chance is probably an outside bronze medal. I think she could potentially do what Paul Kingsman did back in 1988. Anthony Moss has done. I can't see her changing the mood of a nation and, at the highest level and winning gold or even silver. Lewis Clareburt, I agree with his quote completely. No one remembers who wasn't there. Not dissimilar to when Kane Williamson in 10 years now, the 300s that he scored in two tests against South Africa, no one's going to remember the standard of the South African team. Lewis Clareburt has a big race temperament, which is sometimes half the battle for a lot of athletes, actually being able to deal with the occasion. 2018 won a bronze at the Commonwealth Games in Australia. What was a really disappointing Commonwealth Games for New Zealand swimming. No one really knew him, but he found a way to get a bronze in a very good field. And then we've seen him pick up bronze at World Championships, made the Olympic Games final in Tokyo, probably didn't quite have his best day, and now World Championship. So look, I think Lewis is definitely probably more of a medal favourite prospect than perhaps Erika Fairweather. Good enough to win gold. I mean, he went a 4:09. He's probably going to need to swim, and he's gone quicker, but he needs to probably swim a 4:06. Is he capable of that? When you get to that elite level, finding a tenth of a second, half a second is a big deal, let alone having to try and find two or three. But look, a lot of time these races aren't always won in record times. In fact, I think if he had a swum a personal best or had a swum close to his personal best in Tokyo, it would have been actually good enough for the silver medal. So look, I think maybe for the first time since Daniel Loader back in 96, we might have a New Zealand athlete pick up an Olympic medal in swimming. And, and to be honest, about time. We've had a number of athletes over the years finish fourth. And it would be just nice to sort of, see some of our swimmers doing well. They do train hard. It's just, they do train hard. They train really hard in this country. I'm just not sure we got the model right in terms of the way we develop our swimmers at a young age and how we do bring them through.
Apologise to me!
Super Rugby starting this weekend. Let's park that for a second because the Chapel Hadley, which is now T20s as well as ODIs, kicks off tomorrow, first of the 3 one-dayers. We had Gary Stead on the program yesterday, and I was so pleased, Mark, when I asked him the question, would you rather win that series or would you rather nick one of the 2 tests off Australia? And he said, right now, I'd rather win one of the tests from Australia. He's old school like us, and every cricket fan who is, I think, I don't want to dismiss, but a proper cricket fan loves Test cricket, and that win against Australia is something that you remember forever because it is generational. Look, I don't mind the T20, and I love the fact that, look, they're selling out, and look, people are paying to go, mate. You can't deny the fact that a record crowd attends a Warriors pre-season game because those people have paid their money. You can't deny 20-something thousand people buying tickets to a T20 versus Australia at the Cape Town, and then they'll sell out the others. You can't deny people going to the breakers paying their money. Super Rugby's got a long way to make up here, hasn't it? Because, whatever the fluff and guff of the launch last week, they would absolutely be crowing at crowds like this. So first and foremost, let's celebrate people who are spending their money and buying tickets to go to sports events. I love that. But yeah, Super Rugby, and every week we talk about this because you and me care about this and we want the sport to resurrect itself and everything else. But I fear what's going to happen. I think the Chiefs and the Crusaders will get a good crowd, mate, on Friday, but I fear for the rest of the competition. I really do.
Yeah, look, I think Super Rugby will struggle. I think there'll be the early season. Still everyone's not quite in work mode. Nice warm balmy evening. Let's get that out of the way. But yeah, crowds will be awful. Suddenly what used to be a good crowd of 25, 30,000 is now a good crowd's 8,000, and it continues to go on a downward slide. There's just nothing on offer, is there, with Super Rugby? We've discussed that every week. Look, going back to your first point, I want to see New Zealand win test matches against Australia. Look, well done. The T20 stuff is great. It's great entertainment. People just want to go up there and just give grief to David Warner, don't they? They just want to go out there. I'm encouraging everybody to get Sonny Bill Williams cut out card masks and wear those and sit
Take
behind
sandpaper.
them and just give them some grief,
so
mate.
am I. That's why you pay your ticket price. And if you pay your ticket price just to go along and give it to him, I applaud it. I applaud it.
Yeah,
as long as
we've
it's
seen
not
it
nasty. Stop being nasty. Don't be nasty about it. Just be trying to have a sense of humour about it. But stick it to the guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I mean, the 7 years ago, people would dress up as highlight markers. Maybe people could dress up as rolls of sandpaper and if I was Mitre 10 or one of these companies, mate, run a little bit of a sort of a piss-taking promo.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, go and give it to the Aussies, mate. I mean, let's be honest, they lack humility. I mean, they're a wonderful sports team, but they are just so sort of morally corrupt, aren't they? And they're just the least endearing sports team in the world. And mind you, sometimes I wish we had a little bit more of a harder edge than that. But I think there's a difference between a harder edge and just being bad sports.
Well, there's a difference between being an a-hole, isn't there? And that's what
they
bring
I think
on
Australian
the field,
cricket have been a-holes for a long time,
haven't
they? Just with little things. And so hopefully people are just turning up. And hopefully, look, it's a real little... I remember going to that one day international after the underarm series, one of the first series I went to back at Eden Park, about 1981. I remember Martin Crowe played his debut. People were rolling out genuine 10-pin bloody bowling balls, really heavy. And so I do hope that we get great crowds, but let's win the test matches. Like I go back to some of those great one-day international moments that we had in the 1980s, those, the World Series, but I can't actually remember the year and the date, but I do remember 1985 winning test matches. I do win the 86, 87 Boxing Day test with the controversies. And, I remember us winning the test in 2011 in Hobart and, and they are iconic moments. And I think, as we've said every week, it is the measure. And I'm pleased that Gary Stead has said that. But I just think the T20s are really just a really good promotion for the game, and hopefully is the reason why maybe young kids still want to continue to play the game.
Apologise to me!
Warriors selling out in Christchurch. Apart from that, what really can be gleaned from that game? Look, some of the young guys got to run. Roger's back, obviously. But I just think with pre-season, you've always got to remember that you're not going to remember it, are you? Because it's pre-season.
Yeah, I think there's always a danger with pre-season, isn't there? I mean, you need the game time going into the season, but there's always that risk of injury. Look, what they're doing is they're just capitalising on the interest in the game from last year, taking it to Christchurch. It's amazing when you do go down to Christchurch, as much as we give them a bit of grief and how much they do hate Auckland and probably hate the rest of the country, they do still see the Warriors very much as their NRL team. But it's also just, again, just highlights just how big the NRL is in New Zealand, that even Christchurch, Canterbury, which have so long just been rugby, have actually sort of broadened their horizons. And again, that should be just another message to New Zealand rugby. Hang on a minute, the NRL, it's starting to encroach on territories which we thought were forever ours. When you've got Cantabrians turning up in force to watch rugby league, to watch the Warriors, then rugby should be genuinely concerned. Hey, look, just Super Rugby this week, and I did a show with former All Black Steve Devine the other day, and we were both saying just how good we think the Fijian draw might be this year. Fijian rugby very different to what it was 5 or 10 years ago. It's not just play it through the forwards and you'll beat them. And in pre-season, they did a bit of a demolition, I think, on the Brumbies.
And so the Blues have got them first up, Whangarei, on Saturday night. But I think if there's going to be one surprise package, and I hope they do, it might just be the Fijian draw. In fact, I think that game on Saturday night might just be, the game of the round, if not one of the games of the season.
Well, seriously, realistically, what do you expect of your Blues this year? Look, they've got Vern Cotter on board. You've got Tony Brown, who's jumped in there to cover for Jason O'Halloran, and we hope that he gets well as soon as possible and gets back, boots on the field and so forth. But look, this is a Blues side that every year, I watch the hype, I watch the hoopla, I see the snarling faces and the staunch looks and all the promo pictures, and I go, well, save it for the big game against the Crusaders when you turn into a bunch of meow pussycats, mate. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, we've lost some marquee players. I'm not sure that we've got the locking stocks. Look, I think Vern Cotter will bring something very different. I mean, to be honest, they look a lot fitter and a lot sharper in pre-season than we've seen previous years. But, I really do hope Stephen Perifetta has a great season. I've always had a lot of time for him. I'd love to see him establish himself. But, I mean, you've got Harry Plummer at second 5'8", haven't you? You're sort of going, really?
Well, this is the thing with New Zealand rugby. I mean, we always hope that there's going to be a whole and a plethora of new stars coming through. But every year I look at the names on the sheets and I think, okay, it's the same. I mean, I'm looking forward to Quinn Tupaia, just to interrupt there, getting back again for the Chiefs, because I just think that, that guy was barnstorming against the Irish. We never really saw him after that because of that knee injury. But your Blues, you're not going to win it, Mark. I'll tell you right now, mate. You're not going to accept it right now. You're not winning it. Same as my Hurricanes. We're not winning it either, mate. The winner comes from either the Crusaders or the Chiefs.
I actually give your Hurricanes team a bit more. I think guys like Ruben Love and some of the Peter Lakai and some of those guys really will step up this year. And I think I actually give your Hurricanes a little bit more of a chance of the Blues. So I wouldn't write them off. I think the Brumbies will actually potentially end up making the four, only for the fact is that they
play the Australian sides twice.
They play the Australians, so they'll end up getting the home semi-final. Now how hard it is to play there.
Okay, well, what about the Highlanders? Let's go through the New Zealand sides. They're not winning it. Can they make the four?
No interest at all. No, okay. They won't. No.
All right. And Moana Pacifica aren't going to make the four either. So, and let's rule out all the other Australian sides.
And I've heard some rumours that possibly Moana Pacifica could end up combining with one of the Australian teams and actually end up basing themselves over there. And I don't know, maybe with Melbourne. I mean, look, the competition, all we're looking forward to, aren't we, is the Chiefs versus, I don't know, the Crusaders, the Hurricane, and the Hurricanes out of curiosity against the Chiefs and the Blues initially. But any game outside of that, mate, I mean, it's so damn predictable and so damn boring. And and 20, and there'll be a level of excitement and anticipation. 20 minutes into the game, we'll just sit there and go, oh God, same old. And the next day we'll be talking about the refereeing decisions.
Devlin.
Have you seen my wiener?
The platform.